Hey folks, Aaron with PubSafe. Wanted to share some thoughts with you that I've been developing over the last 4 tabletop exercises covering the Tampa Bay surrounding counties. Pasco, Hillsborough, Pinellas, Citrus, Hernando. I think I got them all. And the scenario is a worst case scenario where a Cat 5 hurricane comes right up Tampa Bay, 160 mile an hour sustained winds and a 45 mile wide eye wall, 11 to 20 feet of flood surge in areas, and the devastation that goes along with that. The scenario damage assessments was assembled from scientific data and projections that are used by government to really try to understand the nature and the extent of the impact, i.e. 70% of structures in the path of the eye wall would be destroyed, right? And you start to think about that in Hillsborough County and what that represents. That's homes, businesses, government buildings, et cetera, et cetera. So the exercises in and of itself doesn't seem too difficult. What is the hardest part is trying to scale your mind to encompass the scope of the problem at that size. We have not had a Category 5 right up Tampa Bay in modern history. I'm not sure we ever had one at all, but certainly in modern history, and I've been living in Florida for 50 years, there has been one. I mean, we've had major storms like Hurricane Andrew, but we haven't had one come up Tampa Bay specifically. So as we met in these groups in these different counties, I saw different perspectives on how they viewed the scope of the problem, really kind of based on what their past experience has been. And if they haven't had a major hit from a hurricane, then their ideas tend to be smaller in scale and understanding, in my opinion. When you go to a place go with a group such as Pinellas County, who has had 2 hurricanes in the last 2 years, and both of them were hard hitters, not Category 5, Category 3s, but they were Category 3s big enough to cause significant problems, and the impacts that those storms had. Those people have a much broader view or ability to scale their thinking to the size of the problem of a Category 5. And when you really kind of dive into a Category 5, it's an enormous problem. It's a problem that will have decades-long impact on the community, on the revenue, on the infrastructure. And quite honestly, there's no good answers. Nobody has the answers to how do you evacuate all of the nursing homes in this, along the coast of Pinellas County. Maybe 100 nursing homes with who knows how many residents in those homes. Maybe half of them have medical needs that require some type of specialized care, whether it be oxygen generators or dialysis machines or heart monitors or who knows what, all kinds of crazy medical stuff. And to be able to get those people transported to safe facilities outside the impact zone of a Category 5, it's just a massive, massive undertaking, and that's just one small portion. When you talk about 30% of your schools being down for 6 to 12 months, the complexity of getting those students into schools, rearranging the bus routes, the logistics of working with a limited number of contractors that can build to the standard required for government buildings and things of that nature. The scope of the problem is very overwhelming. But if we're going to do this as a society, we have got to bring together people that understand logistics, and the only ones I can think of are those that are in the military. They understand how to move armies, and when you're thinking at that scale, you're thinking at the scale that's going to be necessary to respond to a Category 5 in Florida. the challenge is that nobody wants to pay for a what if, right? In order to do the right preparation, it will take billions and billions of dollars to stage the proper equipment, maintain that equipment, purchase the land, purchase the warehousing, have the staffing, the transportation, the logistics that goes into moving that much equipment, and then deploying it, and then maintaining it in the field once it's actually deployed. The simple problem, and simple to say, super complex to manage, is a major storm like that would make 500,000 people homeless. And where do you begin with 500,000 people being homeless? Temporary shelters, right? Well, where on earth do you get 500,000 temporary shelters for homeless people? Because everybody else that evacuated is filling up the hotels, all the Airbnbs, and any vacant area that's out there, was absorbed or consumed in the in the initial evacuation. So now these people that may have left come back and they say, there's no home left, it's just a slab. So those people have to decide, do I work on this project for a year, 2, maybe 5 to rebuild, or am I simply going to move somewhere else? And when they move somewhere else, as many do, they never plan on coming back, right? It's too much. They can't go through that same thing over and over again. And they realize, I can rebuild this year to a much higher hurricane standard, but it can still happen to me again, and I can be right back where I am. And that's emotionally too much for a lot of people. So they leave and never come back. When that happens, they take the tax base with them, right? And our communities are built on an expectation of revenue, tax revenue, that supports the roads, the buildings, the infrastructure, the programs, and things like that. And that's just maintenance. When you think about the billions of dollars that are going to be spent in the recovery process, and the fact that there's less income coming into those areas, people moving out, businesses not getting restarted, becomes a super big problem, for the community. And when we think about, well, why is it so important that businesses get back up and running? Because that really represents people going back to work, schools being open, children in school, so their parents don't have to pay for daycare or be home with those kids because they can't be unsupervised. It gives families a chance to earn revenue. It gives businesses a chance to generate revenue. It opens up opportunities for people to spend their money, and it's what makes the system work. So in the Project Phoenix tabletop exercise, it is about how small business gets back on their feet and what can be done between government and small business to facilitate that process. And it's really just super important to understand how important that part is. And the faster those businesses get online, the fewer people are going to move, the fewer businesses that are going to be lost, the more tax revenue is going to be saved in the long run, and the community is going to return to a level of normalcy faster. So I've got 2 more of these exercises this week. That'll be a total of 6 that I will have attended. Same exercise over and over again. So I'm getting to know the staff pretty well, doing a great job. And I'll report back with a final assessment, as well as go through some of my notes that I've been taking on common topics and some really good ideas and things that we should be thinking about as a disaster response community. And quite honestly, PubSafe solves a lot of the problems that are involved in coordinating the response for NGOs and CERTs, right? And I'll get more into that in another video. Thanks for watching.